Okay, let's fucking do this shit. Also, I'd like to take a moment to note that I made this board and did not realize that since I'm covering black and white movies, it's too dark and it has become virtually obsolete. So, I'll just be putting images up. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Nosferatu, and Dracula's daughter. These monsters aren't just horror icons, they've always carried a layer of queerness. Not in a secret subtext only academics found out years later kind of way, but more like they've been that way since the beginning. It's a part of how they're made, and I'm going to be digging into that. They're about desire that doesn't fit the rules, identities that have to be hidden, people cast out for being others, and transformations that feel both powerful and terrifying. And for queer audiences, these themes have landed, clearly. So, in this video, yeah, I'm going to be breaking down these universal monsters and go through the themes throughout. They share a lot of themes. Go through the themes throughout that connect to each one. Buckle up. A brief history. So, in the early 1900s, queerness was obviously seen as something to be fixed or feared. Psychologists called it deviant and criminal and connected it to things like paranoia and sadism. Everybody argued nature versus nurture, but the common denominator here was fear. That fear helped to cement their gender roles and ultimately cast queer people as the dangerous other. Horror movies picked up that cultural anxiety and fucking ran with it. Queerness started showing up on screen as something monstrous, something either corrupting an outside force or buried deep, hiding underneath the surface. Onto the themes. So if you look at these early horror classics, you'll see a lot of the same traits popping up, and that's exactly what we're going to be talking about now in this video. So we have got forbidden desire, tragedy, transformation, otherness, and hidden identity. So even though these films were shaped by Fear and Prejudice, they ended up giving us monsters that feel familiar, characters that wrestle with desire, identity, and rejection in ways that still resonate. So, starting off with the movies. I'm going to be breaking the movies down by plot, like a real quick synopsis, and then we're going to get into the themes that connect to that specific film. And I'm going to start off with Nosferatu. Here's the Nosferatu plot. Thomas Hutter is sent by his boss, Eric Knock, to Transylvania to meet Count Orlok, because he is a real estate agent and Count Orlok is trying to purchase real estate. Thomas's wife, Ellen, is seemingly very intuitive and senses danger long before he leaves. Orlok follows Hutter home, becoming obsessed with Ellen after seeing a photograph of her. He brings plague and death to the town while his little buddy, Eric Knock, is under his influence, and Knock goes just crazy. He goes insane. He goes batshit crazy. They lock him up. His ass gets locked up. Ultimately, while the town is in this downward spiral with the literal plague, Ellen sacrifices herself, letting Orlok feed on her until dawn, so he is in the sun and dies, essentially saving her husband and the town. She told everybody and they didn't listen, and then she saved them anyway. On to the themes. The first theme I'll point out is forbidden desire. The way that Orlok is framed around Thomas is very... well, yeah. Also, Thomas is the only one that Count Orlok kept alive because Orlok bit him and didn't kill him. So that kind of raises suspicion, which ties to queer desire being demonized in the 20s. Next up is otherness. Orlok is grotesque. He is foreign to these people. He is marked as an outsider, and he brings literal plague and death to this town. While his little sidekick, Canuck, is locked away. And both of them embody society's view of queer people as this dangerous other. And finally is transformation. There is the town's transformation whenever Orlok shows up, bringing literal plague and death. There's Canuck and Ellen being under Orlok's influence, with Canuck ultimately becoming an outsider and Ellen ultimately becoming dead, but she died for a good cause. Next up is Dracula. Here's the plot. Real estate agent Renfield travels to Transylvania and ends up under Count Dracula's control, and he gets back to London and he's just completely insane. Dracula follows Renfield back to London and settles down in his little spot, feeding on young women, including Lucy, who he turns into a vampire. When Mina also falls under Dracula's spell, Van Helsing figures out what's going on. And with Mina's fiance, John Harker, Van Helsing tracks down Dracula and stakes him, breaking the curse and saving Mina. On to the themes. First up is hidden identity. Dracula hides his true nature behind his charm, reflecting having this fake double life that people thought queer people were trying to have. Yeah. Next is forbidden desire. Dracula's bite is a metaphor for queer intimacy. It's shown as infectious and contagious and dangerous and all the bad things. Lugosi's elegant and again foreign Dracula seduces Lucy and Mina, while Renfield's devotion to Dracula reads homoerotic. There's like no getting around it. Desire shown in Dracula ultimately leads to danger and death. Lucy is punished, Dracula is ultimately destroyed.
Girl, he dies.
And queer longing is shown as something that is powerful but ultimately doomed. Alright, next up is Wolfman. That guy. So Larry Talbot returns to his family's estate, hangs around for a little bit, and goes to an antique shop and buys a silver-headed wolf cane. Is that how you say those words together? I guess so. Later, he uses that cane to fight a werewolf, who, by the way, is Bela Lugosi, but he bites him, passing on his lycanthropy to Larry. Aw, Larry. Larry is obviously and expectedly very horrified as he transforms into this beast under the full moon. He loses all control of himself. He harms a gravedigger and a villager until eventually his dad, John, ends up killing him because he doesn't believe him that it's him. And then he kills him and then he feels really bad about it. On to the themes in Wolfman. First off is hidden identity. Larry lives this double life, struggling with repression and desire, which makes him both dangerous and sympathetic. Society punishes difference, reflecting the fear and the feelings towards homosexuality at the time. Next up is otherness. The werewolf acts as a metaphor for queerness. It's feared, misunderstood, and othered. And Larry's father unknowingly strikes him down, emphasizing the tragic consequences of being different. And last, obviously, is transformation. Larry is cursed into this transformation, and he is unable to control his actions. The only cure for Larry was death, mirroring attempts to fix queerness. Next up is Frankenstein. Here is the plot. Doctor, fucking nice one, dude. God. Dr. Henry Frankenstein and his assistant Fritz build a creature from body parts and bring it to life with electricity during a storm. But it's given the brain of a criminal and the creature becomes confused and violent. The monster escapes, accidentally drowning a young girl, and then a mob, pitchfork and all, comes after him. He goes to a windmill, they set the windmill on fire, supposedly killing the monster and Henry Frankenstein. And here are the Frankenstein themes. First off is otherness. Both Henry and the monster are outsiders in this movie, and the monster is constantly rejected simply for just being as he was created, highlighting society's fear of the other. Next up is transformation. Creating the monster mirrors forbidden desire and blurs the lines between man and monster, and it shows how difference is seen as threatening. And finally is tragedy. The monster longs to belong and be understood, but is constantly rejected. He and Henry both meet tragic ends. The tragic queer, bury your gaze, you get it. And the last movie that I'll be covering is Dracula's Daughter, so here's the plot. Dracula's daughter, obviously, Miss Zaleska, tries to free herself from her vampire curse, but cannot escape her father's shadow. She leans on her psychiatrist, Dr. Garth, and her servant, Sandor, for help, but also becomes entangled with Lily, a young woman that represents both temptation and vulnerability. So Sandor manipulates Miss Zaleska into hunting victims, and then when she kidnaps Garth's secretary to try to force Garth to help her, Sandor tracks her down and kills her because she broke their promise. She dies again. She dies. Hey, they killed her? Come on now. Come on. And finally, onto the themes of Dracula's daughter. First off is forbidden desire. Zaleska's vampirism mirrors lesbianism in a major way, especially towards women like Lily and Janet. Her attraction to women is very much emphasized, and she shows little interest in the men. Next up is hidden identity. She tries to live a normal life and suppress her urges as a vampire, mirroring society's desperate need and pressure to suppress queerness. And psychiatry represents a cure for her sexuality. And finally is tragedy again. She is punished for her desires but remains sympathetic, showing repression and isolation. And her struggle highlights that sexuality can't be erased, making her yet another tragic queer figure. And finally, people, you bitches ready for this shit? I don't know how to do a conclusion, so I don't know, we're just gonna talk this shit through. The Universal Monsters weren't meant to be queer icons, I'm sure, by the big name companies that were dealing with them, but the fears that created them are exactly why they still resonate. These movies all carry stories of longing and otherness and wanting to feel like you belong in a place that feel deeply familiar. Horror tried to paint queerness as monstrous, but it inadvertently gave us monsters that we could see ourselves in.